Hello everyone, and welcome to this week's Astrology News Report, an alternate view of world events as seen through the lens of Vedic Astrology, presented by yours truly, Ron Berger. Today is January 22nd, 2017. In this segment, we'll take a look at the week that was and see how the planets' patterns in the zodiac matched up with the past week's events. So, last week's big event was the inauguration of the new President of the United States. Although the ritual of installing a new president didn't seem particularly unusual, certainly the events that unfolded subsequently were. After taking the oath, Donald Trump gave a very nationalistic speech, clearly pitched at his base. The speech was definitely not the conciliatory, inclusive, uplifting sermon that has become normal for a president's inaugural address. Instead, it was a pugnacious, dark, blaming diatribe full of rhetorical bravado and even punctuated with raised fists. Rather than an address to bring the country together, it was an expression of the divisions he successfully exploited as a candidate. Some pundits noted how similar the concepts and phrasing were to the uber-nationalist diatribes of 1930s Europe. One commentator even said it was Hitlerist. After President Donald Trump's strikingly populist and nationalist inaugural address, thousands of protesters crowded into the streets of the Capitol, and although for the most part the demonstrators were peaceful, violence ensued in several instances. Some set up barricades and threw objects at police, smashed windows, and a limousine was set ablaze. Over 200 were arrested, and 6 police officers were injured. The next day, Saturday, with the Trump administration now less than 24 hours old, hundreds of thousands of women descended on Washington, D.C. for the Women's March, which turned into the largest protest march in recent history. As the aerial photos made clear, the crowd far surpassed the numbers who had shown up the previous day for Trump's inauguration ceremony. Some estimates put it at 3 times the number who were there for his inauguration. Ostensibly, it was a demonstration for women's rights, but no one demonstrating had any illusions about the underlying theme. This was a big no for the new President of the United States. Further, there were mass demonstrations in major cities throughout the country, and even more amazingly, in major cities throughout the world. Millions of people demonstrating their feelings, and this is just the first day of the Trump administration. Yep, definitely not business as usual. So, what does the astrology pattern indicate? First, refer to the predictions for the nation, as shown by the astrology chart of the USA. As noted in previous episodes of this blog, the USA is at the beginning of a Rahu major period, which activates the 8th house of the country's birth chart. The Rahu period signifies major transformations, but along with that comes confusion, obfuscation, and urgency. The 8th house also emphasizes transformations and a whole bunch of other meanings as well, including death of the leader. Additionally, note the transit of Uranus, the planet of freedom, revolution, and rebellion, which is still present through the USA 4th house, the house of the homeland and the common people. Additionally, Uranus is transiting opposite to the USA natal Saturn, the planet of established order. On the very day of Trump's inauguration, Mars, planet of combat, planet of action, joined Uranus in Pisces. This is a very volatile combination, which will get even more intense next month as Mars gets closer to Uranus. And then we have the situation for Mr. Trump's own chart, which interestingly also brings up an emphasis on his 8th house through its activation by his just begun Jupiter major period. Jupiter is the planet of beliefs. See that Jupiter is accompanied by Neptune, the planet of fantasies and deception in his natal chart. Additionally, right at the time of inauguration, Trump is enduring a really intense Saturn transit. The planet of harsh reality is lining up with his natal moon and opposed to his natal sun, a pattern that guarantees major pressure and stress, forcing you to learn lessons, irrespective of whether you want to or not. And then there's Uranus, the planet of rebellion and disruption, which is now directly opposing his natal Jupiter, his current major period ruler, his planet of beliefs, and which is simultaneously being enhanced by transiting Jupiter. Well, looks like it's going to be kind of intense. The first press briefing of the new administration was pretty astonishing, even by White House press briefing standards. Besides the overly pugnacious tone, the new press secretary, Sean Spicer, did not, as would have been normal, take any questions, but rather read a statement that ripped into the press, blasting them for reporting on a less than spectacular turnout for the inauguration. That is, the press briefing was only about the new president's unhappiness over the numbers, in other words, his ratings. And in case someone missed that, Trump himself goes and visits CIA headquarters and makes the same statement in front of 400 CIA employees that the media is lying about the size of his inauguration crowd. A Trump spokesperson explained all this by saying Donald was just presenting alternative facts. Meaning what? Is that the same as lies that support your preferred narrative? So we have to ask ourselves, what the hell is going on here? I mean, all those people, the overhead shots of the crowds, the police department estimates, he doesn't believe it. He thinks it's all a big conspiracy to make him look small. It's all sounding like third world autocracy attitude. You can only say or print stuff that is complimentary to dear leader. And what happens next? Saturn is changing signs on January 26th. A planet at 0 degrees of a sign is very weak and vulnerable. Saturn is the planet of structure and stability. The prediction is for a lot of uncertainty, a lot of doubt and unreliability, which will persist for the coming weeks and even months. And here's the kicker. This Saturn vulnerability happens as Saturn is moving into the USA chart's ascendant. In other words, the very identity of the country becomes unstable. And what we have just witnessed is only the beginning. Okay, that'll do it for this week's Review of the Week. You can keep up with daily astrological developments and contribute your own thoughts by following me on Twitter at Astro News Report.